Welcome back to the 18 Megatrends course. We're here for our final module, which is all about divergence. Divergence is the sexiest of the 6 patterns of opportunity. It's basically the idea of thinking against the grain. It's about personalization or customization. It's about rebellion. It's about style and fashionizing. And it's about the megatrends of authenticity, personalization, and many to many. Let's kick off with personalization. Personalization is a pretty popular concept today. It's the idea that the only truly unique product is a product that's made just for you. Now, there are many different ways to achieve personalization, but one of my favorite examples can be seen from TAM Airlines. TAM Airlines actually decided to look at the social media profiles of the people who were boarding a specific flight and put together seat back magazines that were specifically made for the person sitting in that area. So if you were taking that flight, you would sit down, open up the magazine, and see a collection of your own interests. What's your favorite movie? Maybe it's an article about that director. What is your favorite book? Maybe it's an excerpt from that book or suggested readings based on that preference. A really, really personalized campaign that got tons of positive attention. Now, of course, it can't always be about creating something that customized on that massive scale. But one thing that's become easier in the realm of personalization is DNA personalization, which we see with this insight, DNA skincare. Because of the availability of the technology today, we're able to integrate more DNA-specific features into various kinds of products, which is why you see a boom of that in areas like food, in areas like DNA testing kits, and yes, in areas like skincare. Personalization is about the idea that a custom item is the ultimate in uniqueness. What opportunities for personalization could be integrated into your offering? Next up, we have our authenticity megatrend. Now, defining authenticity is something many people have tried and failed to do. But as a megatrend, authenticity is the idea that authenticity is something all brands should strive toward. It's really that simple. Now, it's not easy to achieve authenticity in the eyes of your consumer, especially when you're trying to target a youth consumer. But a great example of that done well is seen in a clean and clear ad where the company acknowledges that the harder they try to speak to the younger set, the less authentic they'll seem. And so what they decided to do instead is take a more self-deprecating route, where they acknowledge that they tried to implement many different youth stereotypes unsuccessfully and will instead just rest on the fact that they have a good product that is scientifically created and that is actually effective. Self-deprecation is a really great route to authenticity. Now, another approach to authenticity is seen in reverse influencer. Reverse influencer is an insight that acknowledges that today influencer marketing is ubiquitous and consumers are starting to get a little bit sick of it. Influencer marketing is turning into what it was trying to battle in the first place, traditional marketing that was tough to trust. And so what we're seeing instead are more interesting approaches, more comedic approaches, and yes, more self-deprecating approaches to influencer marketing that actually use celebrities who weren't originally influencers but are now backtracking to seem more accessible. Authenticity is born from the idea that social media has put a premium on what it means to be sincere. What about your brand or product could come off as disingenuous? Now, for our final megatrend, not just under Divergence, but our final of all 18, we have many to many. Many to many is admittedly one of the more difficult megatrends to understand, but I like to think of it as an offshoot of the instant entrepreneurship megatrend that we saw earlier. If people today have enough resources available to them to pretty easily create their own business, then many to many is what the economy looks like when we see more peer-to-peer business happening. It's the idea that where the power used to belong to maybe 5 corporations per industry, it's actually being democratized. And we're seeing people at the core of every single industry today. One great example of this in action is Glossier. By now, you're probably familiar with the cosmetics brand. And Glossier, interestingly enough, started out completely apart from the actual cosmetic space. It was an online magazine that was dedicated to millennial female lifestyles. What wound up happening is the articles that were about cosmetics products were getting similar comments across the board. And so the creator of Into the Gloss, which was the name of the magazine, Emily Weiss, decided that she would scan through all of those comments to figure out what exactly her specific consumer base defined as the perfect cosmetic products. And then she made them. And thus was the birth of Glossier. Now, Glossier is a great example of many to many because specifically in the cosmetic space, the power used to be in the hands of maybe 3 very large corporations. But Glossier shows that as long as you put the power within the consumer, maybe you can create something that really challenges the status quo. An insight that looks at this as well is anarchist R&D. Anarchist R&D is an insight that looks at the idea of, yes, co-creating products with consumers, but doing so in a way that totally allows the corporation to step away and gain more sort of organic perspective into what people want. When it comes to many, it's all about the idea that big brand skepticism has created a rise in P2P. What steps can you take to bring consumers together? Now that wraps us up for our megatrends under Divergence, and once again for all 18 of those megatrends. One thing to take away when it comes to Divergence specifically, consumers don't want to feel like consumers being served by corporations, but people relating to other people. Now with that said, check out our final snapshot of that 18 Megatrends matrix, and remember to visit trendhunter.com/pro for a further breakdown of the 18 Megatrends. Thanks again for tuning in. For any additional resources, follow the links below. See you soon.